And then we'll move into the pineal gland, which is the super antenna. And so the pineal gland is a male genital organ since it ejaculates, omits, and releases visions. So we're able to actually see into those timelines, to have those beautiful ability for that imagination to spark, and for us to actually, again, pull into that full ability to create.
Welcome back to Light Forged. So we often talk about the hero's journey, the descent into the underworld, and the return to the light. But rarely do we speak about the specific physical rituals designed to bind that light before we even had a voice. There are unfortunately many mechanisms designed to snuff out our light as early as possible, yanking us from the womb, cutting the cord too early, the cold metal table, the harsh lights, the injection of poisons. It's a true nightmare. But today we are speaking about arguably the darkest of these practices designed to disconnect us from self, the blood ritual of circumcision. And while this is a horrific trauma, one we must not look away from if we are to finally end it, it is vital to remember that this and all physical traumas cannot touch the eternal spirit. We are not broken. And this brings me to my guest today, someone very special to me, a soul I've only met recently in this timeline, yet she feels so familiar. I'm certain it's not the first. The radiant and powerful woman beside me is Jenna McClelland. She is a somatic alchemist, a researcher, and the creator of the circumcision healing program called the Ninetagram. Her life's mission is the true restoration of the self, specifically offering divine feminine love to invite the masculine back to his rightful throne beside her. But more than that, she is a guide that I have personally trusted with my own healing. The work I've done with Jenna has been nothing short of phenomenal. In a world that swings between bypassing pain and drowning in victimhood, Jenna holds a frequency of absolute sovereignty. She helped me access deeper layers of release, not by fixing me, but by guiding me back to the realization that the Christ within, the I am presence, has never been cut and can never be diminished. We are going deep today into the mechanics of the biological alchemy, the restoration of the energetic body, and the return of the divine masculine. Jenna, I'm so full of joy to have you in this space. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my goodness, I'm crying. That's really sweet. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here and to be introduced into your audience. So it's a privilege to talk about one of the most hidden and unconscious traumas of our time.
Yes, absolutely. Let's dive right into it. So, Jenna, in our private work, we've explored this profound paradox. The physical scar is real, but the energetic foreskin, the holographic blueprint, is still accessible. Can we talk about the mechanics of that bridge? How does a man move from the grief of the physical loss to the realization that his Christed nature was never actually severed?
Loaded. Right in. We're here. We're here. Well, to get to that place of even wanting or having any form of desire to walk through the bridge and to really see beyond the personal self. So the personal self is going to be like the conditioned self, the person that we morphed into from utero, from our birth experience, from our upbringing, from the family dynamics, from school, everything. I could keep going. So pretty much the matrix. So being able to hold all of those programs that are literally locked and linked in our brain as neural networks, and to come outside of what we've been told is and what we should be told isn't, and to be able to feel deeper into a space within us, to be able to walk more into the metaphysical experience. We have been conditioned and trained to live physically of everything. We are our body, we are our accolades, we are everything that is tethered and connected in this 3D realm, in this earth school. But the idea of really embarking on this journey is recognizing that we are spirit in a physical body, having an experience through consciousness and on this earthly plane. And really seeing that the everyday lived experience that we have, the connection that we feel off camera, the connection that we feel with others, that desire, that inclination, there's something more to life. What we miss mostly out of people when they die, it's not necessarily their body, it's how they made us feel. It's those euphoric, blissful types of metaphysical experience that we get to experience and perceive. And it is through that perception, and it is through that experience that we're actually having this conversation. So realizing that outside of this 3D form fully exists the full-blown experience of what it is to be alive in this beautiful place, and how certain traumas can affect that experience of the metaphysical on this plane. So for example, if you are waking up and there's a part of you that has low self-esteem and you can't fully ground in ideas, and certain parts of you aren't able to grasp onto ideas, and there's frustration, and I really want to be a leader, that's what a man is supposed to do, and I feel it in my bones, this is my calling. But the metaphysical experience is being able to grasp from the elements of the mind, the elements of the pineal gland, the elements of the heart, and really conceptualize your highest self identity, which is aligned and connected to your higher self, which is wholeness and life itself. So being able to see the dichotomy of the experience and realize that I'm taking an internal inventory to adjust or see what it is that I have and what it is that I don't have, and how is this scar, metaphysical and physical scar, affecting me or blinding me in this experience from truly seeing life the way that I came here to experience it, and the way that I came here to perceive and to see it. Hope that answered your question a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. And it really touches on the recognition of what I am versus what I am not. And really having that distinguishment. I am not this body. I'm not even this mind or this experience that I'm having. I am the observer beyond all of that. So that's wonderfully said. Thank you for that. So you've been courageous in naming circumcision as a blood ritual or a sacrificial act. If we view this through an alchemical lens, the ritual was intended to bind us to a lower frequency. How do we use somatic work not just to heal the pain, but to reverse engineer that ritual? How do we use the scar itself as the portal back to, and perhaps even leverage to higher divine sovereignty?
Gosh, such a beautiful question. I just want to be sure that I'm fully digesting it as best as I can to give a practical, digestible understanding to it. So you're asking me basically what in the somatic realm can help us uh, or propel us into being able to tie deeper into the wholeness that we are as our Christ self. Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
correct.
Okay, great question. So to really understand the somatics and what it is that I do in my work first, it's everything kind of moves backwards. We actually start more in the psychic and the psychological, and then things start to weave into the somatic expression. But if I were to exemplify or to share the examples of the types of blockages that are created somatically in the body, is that the energy of connection that stems from the gut and that moves through the heart and into the brain and the pineal gland is going to have some form of obstruction. There is going to be a hardening of the heart, a hardening of feeling the fears of being vulnerable, not wanting to be intimate, not being able to fully turn the full magnetism of the heart chakra and that energy back in towards yourself for acceptance. A lot of men are feeling very unworthy of protection because somatically in the physical body, when they entered into the earthly realm, they were strapped down to this medical device that held them against their will, and they had the most sensitive part of their body ripped off. So from a somatic perspective, that will jolt so much into his system that it will all automatically imprint impressions into the vital organs and into the energetic body of the human being itself that will separate him and dissociate him from the full embodiment of his divine masculine. We not only have the realms of his experience when it comes to his personal life, his career, the opportunities he's attracting, having a romantic partnership, or in sexuality in general. Each compartment, there's going to be disconnects that are preventing him from fully expressing the full capacity of each of those opportunities, again, to develop and to express and to harness all of that beauty and why we're here and what we came to experience. So the somatic expression can show up in, if we're going to speak within the sexual realm, it can show up as premature ejaculation. It can show up as erectile dysfunction. It can show up as impotence, and it can show up as really not allowing you to deeply be present in the space of your partner and to be able to open yourself enough to love her and for her to feel your love, because the last time that you were naked and vulnerable was when you were strapped down in that device, in that circumstance. So the body is always going to hold that imprint, even all the way to the sensations, all the way to the face, the doctor's face, the cries of the other babies in the room. Every detail is now a subliminal message that's constantly being fed into him. And these things that are constantly being fed to him are going to create parts within his psychology, parts inside of his brain that are going to hold on to the trauma. And then it's going to create other personalities that create those blockages that prevent him from showing up as a leader, from having clarity, from expressing emotions, because everything here is an emotion, right? Everything that we desire and we want, but expressing and feeling them in a way that's not so erratic and something to run away from. But how do we have that divine perception and a clear channel to fully drop in and feel the somatic expression of that emotional energy in our body and really adjust and feel like where we are and how can I take the next step? And if you don't know how you're feeling, what type of experience are you ultimately having? Because then the communication is fully going to be blocked. The throat chakra will definitely have lumps in it. The heart is hardened. The gut is super sensitive and queasy to the extent that when information comes in through the gut, right? Because there's a large number of neurons that are connected in it. So the energy feeds into the gut, and then it's going to try to move up to the heart and then up through the mind into the pineal gland. Well, if the heart is fully encased with blockages and it's hardened over time from these deep wounds, from not being able to feel successful, from not going to point A to point B, for being fearful of vulnerability, intimacy, it's going to block all that information. So there's no way that through the natural channel that they're really going to be able to harness the intellect and the psychic abilities that they naturally have to connect to. Like, a lot of people say that, women definitely have more of a spiritual inclination and a psychic and intuitive inclination, but men do as well. And this isn't something like, just because it's common, it does not mean that it's normal. And men have this grand capacity and ability to see and process and, I guess, download psychic visions on these timelines that could be way higher, way more elevated than what he's currently experiencing, because that's a loop. That's a timeline lock. There's no way that if he can't fully use the pineal gland because of the channel, but also because of the circumcision of the pineal gland, we can get into that in a minute. a little bit later as well, if he can't see higher expressions of what can be called in his life, there's no way he's going to have any spirituality at all, because this is what the world looks like. It's mundane, it's depressing. I can't call in what I want. I can't be a leader. And they're going to be more inclined to stick towards propaganda or narratives that are in the system that are a lot more easier. It's like, okay, well, then I'll just do a 9 to 5. Okay, well, I'm just going to have these normal, I'm just going to call them bland types of experiences. But we're all here on purpose. We all have an assignment, truly. And to not be in a place to feel so congested, that are these energy blocks that are in the system that don't allow you to access the opportunity to really tap into your calling, then I guess you could say there's more conformity. There's less of that masculine inclination to truly stand and be grounded and stand in the honor of who you are, and being able to say no, being able to say yes with authority and with intention and with integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like this initial trauma imprint starts the perhaps deepest scar, and then the traumatic patterning from that reinforces that scar because of the limitations and the blockages that have been created from that initial imprint.
Yeah. And then the emotions behind it are going to exacerbate the imprint, and it's going to make it more compounded in the brain.
It becomes as you said, a perpetuating loop based on the thought process, the emotional process behind repeating that and reinforcing it.
Yeah.
So you started to get into the sort of spiritual antenna, or the way that we can connect back to that pineal, move that energy, that sacred sexual energy at the impetus, which is the creative driving force for everything, and how that gets locked through this scar tissue. So I'm curious, what else did you want to expand upon with that pineal unlocking and shifting into that activated antenna?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I lightly touched on it. So, one thing that is really not out there, has yet to be fully discussed and discovered, is that we are metaphysical beings having this physical experience. And when we can think of the male genitalia as a male genital organ, clearly, but there are parts of our body that are also male, that also hold the energy of male genitalia, male genital organs.
Mhm.
So every part in the body that acts as like a male genital organ has also been circumcised, even though it was just something that happened on the physical plane. It still creates such a castration to those points that it cuts out and circumcises the full capacity and rhythm of those and the energetics of the organs. For example, we'll start with the mind. So the mind is a male genital organ in the fact that it ejaculates ideas, thoughts, thousands a day, right? So it's a male genital organ because it's constantly omitting and ejaculating thoughts and ideas.
Mhm.
Well, if the male genital organ of the mind has been cut, then the ability to fully grasp all of the sperm, let's call them sperm, grasp the sperm, to fully conceptualize the highest identity of the man. So if you can't fully have the ability to grasp the information in and incubate it, you are not going to have the perfect, most clear version of yourself visible to you in your mind. And then it will affect the low self-esteem. So a low self-esteem imprint will come in, because how can you have any form of self-esteem if you can't fully conceptualize who you are
Mhm.
and what you came here to do and how you came here to serve? So a lot of frustration comes out of this, a lot of difficulty, and this is going to be one of the things that will start keeping you in that loop. It also will trail into the immaculate conception of humans that we have to draw in from the ether and to make into the physical form. So just in the Bible, it says like, bring on to earth as it is in heaven. We have this ability to physically manifest beings, to manifest opportunities, life, a cell phone, like whatever it is, we can connect into the antenna and do that. For the full manifestation of Immaculate Conception to exist is going to have to also come from the incubation and the emotional sector of the heart. Now, the heart is definitely has these female, the majority of it is female. However, when we think about what the heart does, what does the heart do? The heart omits and ejaculates feelings, emotions, frequency, energy, right? Why did they want us 6 feet apart during the COVID scheme? It's because we are these electromagnetic beings. So that electromagnetism is no longer synchronized in a way that they're on different radio frequencies. So when it comes to the heart is producing so much unconditional love, so much love in general, but there's no access for him to turn that energy back in towards himself. So a lot of men end up like looking in the mirror and they judge themselves. Why can't I love myself? Why can't I accept myself? And they kind of go into this series of, well, maybe if I take this course, or maybe if I do this workshop, or read this book, or do this one thing, like finally I'll begin to accept myself fully and love what I see in the mirror. But then they start to get really frustrated, which exacerbates more of this body density of the trauma just to get heavier. Is they don't think that, they think something's wrong with them. And so that judgment and the rejection starts to blossom out of this circumcision, the metaphysical circumcision of the heart. And then we'll move into the pineal gland, which is the super antenna. And so the pineal gland is a male genital organ in the sense it ejaculates, omits, and releases visions. So we're able to actually see into those timelines, to have those beautiful ability for that imagination to spark, and for us to actually again pull into that full ability to create. And so I started to pick up on this from channeling with the celestials, but also when I have simple questions that I'll ask men when they reach out to me, and I'll just be like, okay, because I want to activate the frontal lobe to make decisions, but I also need to get the reptilian brain to activate as well so they can harmonize and they can work, so he can actually move beyond the fear, move beyond the trauma. And I'll say, so if you were to visualize yourself in your highest timeline, if you were to imagine the greatest outcome, the greatest experience of your life, what would it be? I don't know. I can't even imagine. I can't even conceptualize that. And they can't even form that television internal experience on to get them to be able to quantum leap into a whole new realm of experience. So that antenna, the spirituality understanding, and then we can also add in the sickness of the Western mind. We were talking about this the other day. The Western mind has been poisoned into no longer believing in the miraculous, no longer believing in the supernatural. Like, why is it that some people can get off a wheelchair and run on the beach for the first time after a doctor has told them that they'll never be able to walk ever again in their life, and then they get up and they run? Like, why is it that people like Anita Morjani can have cancer baseballs, all in tumors, all inside her body? And then 6 weeks later, she's remissed, the tumors are gone, and she's better. But the Western mind has poisoned us to not think that energy healing is real, that the metaphysical can offer more of an outstanding, true healing capacity than anything that we would be taking in allopathic medicine, or any type of even, certain supplements and things. Because who is the healer? Truly, it's you. And so because of this, men are going to be more susceptible to the infectious Western mind of not believing and needing the body and being trapped inside of it so much that they are at so much odds with themselves and their genitalia, that there is no more coherency. There is no more the ability that even though your physical body has experienced a cut, an amputation, there is still a real ability to shift and change the frequency of your body and to have a whole new outlook, a whole new understanding that, like you said, I'm not my wounds. I am not what happened to me. I am not my story. I'm the writer. And so you can see how these different types of the metaphysical harms, how when you relate it to almost every single man or what you see walking on the street, it is no wonder so many of them are isolated and in fear, and not having anyone in their life that they can count on, because again, that fear of intimacy and vulnerability is shocking them into paralysis.
Wow. Yeah, it really touches on so much of what you said, and I loved how you took the words right out of my mouth as far as touching on the real meaning behind Immaculate Conception and getting out of the sort of literal interpretation. Not that that story might not have happened that way. It certainly could have, but the deeper layer to it is how can we embody that Immaculate Conception? How can we restore that connection to the divine so that we're actively receiving and transmitting? And really the fundamental um, conspiracy of all conspiracies is all about disconnection. How many ways can we be severed from ourselves, from each other, and from source? And those are all one and the same.
100%.
Yeah, very well said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, so in regards to releasing this trauma, coming back to the scar tissue, so I love how your work reinforces we're not fixing a broken man, but we're revealing the king who was there all along. How do you help men distinguish between processing the wound and identifying with the wound? How do we stop the victim archetype from hijacking the healing?
Mm. Well, frankly, a lot of the men that come to me, I tell them off the bat, if there's a part of you that is still connected to the victim, then psychically we won't be able to do the work together,
Hmm.
because the victim is a neural network that is locked in his brain, and the voices of the victim will come in and sabotage any of the other type of new neural networks that are being introduced in the system of us working together. So it's very difficult for me to approach a man in this beautiful, nourishing divine mother archetype that I am, and to help him really be empowered by me asking him the right questions and him coming to these realizations on his own. But if he has certain trauma-based entities that are going to voice up and get in the way, it's really not going to happen. He has to be at a place where he can step onto the first step of sitting on his throne. And if he is not ready to sit on his throne, if he doesn't even think that a throne is possible, then it's not. I don't know how he's going to be able to really help himself at all. And that's what I see a lot in the intactivist realm and in this space. It's totally justifiable to have that victim, to have that experience, and to hold on to it and explore the feelings around it and the sensations around it, and to take that inventory of how has this affected me in my life. But that's it. There comes a point when you even started this conversation, it's the hero's journey. You got to drop it.
Hmm.
You got to dissolve that, because that's kind of part of that disconnect. That's where any mechanism that wants to hijack our experience as unlimited, beautiful beings here in this realm, like you got to let that go.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a balance in, as you mentioned, in caring for the victim, caring for the wounded child, not disconnecting ourselves from that process of being with that, but then letting go of that weight that's continually dragging me down into that perspective, separating myself from identifying with the victim and in that pure observational mode, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know the foreskin is a threshold. It's a guardian of the body's most sensitive entry point. So when that guardian is removed, the nervous system often stays in a permanent open or unsafe state. How do we teach the body to build a new energetic boundary so that the man can finally feel safe enough to open his heart again?
Great question. Yeah. The foreskin is psychosomatically is his protective shield,
Mm.
right? And having that removal is actually pretty profound in that the safety mechanism and being able to walk into spaces and have your most sensitive part and vulnerable part of your body is exposed, right? Because the foreskin covers the glands and it keeps almost like the penis, the shaft in a shield, in a protective garb. And so psychosomatically, when that is removed, a lot of men will go into restaurants, go into spaces, and always be worried about safety and not feeling kind of covered and protected in a certain way. It's almost like walking around naked and going to the Nike store or whatever that may be. So there's this level of safety that is removed during it. And so the somatic expression of that in the nervous system is going to be more hypervigilance. He's going to be a lot more prone for external validation, overcompensating in achievements, and needing to succeed, needing to be respected, needing to prove, try, and seek. And so to be able to, those mechanisms to cover the ultimate, I'm not safe or I'm not enough as I am, because that's kind of it. Like you're an infant and you have a part of your body removed, the body is going to start sending signals constantly. I'm not whole. Like, it's chop my finger off, same thing. My body will start to send signals, and then that will create a neural network in the brain, where this neural network has this, I'm not enough, because that was the experience, that was the identity that was extracted from the traumatic event. So the idea in how to calm and help restore the nervous system in this way is a lot of practicality, practical understanding. This is what trauma is. This is how you heal. This is what's going on inside. I want every man that I work with to feel like it's digestible and that they're like, okay, like I obviously am not my trauma. I'm obviously not what happened to me. So it kind of starts to load some of the weight off of when you can kind of see it, this tangible thing, and then all of a sudden you actually can really see it and discover it. You start to feel bigger than the situation. You start to feel a little bit more like, okay, now I know what's really happening and what trauma is and how it's operating in my system. Now I have power over that because I understand it. And understanding is the first opening to healing. And it is through the practicality of spirituality, of where you are, what's going on, why things look a certain way. It starts to help you kind of like, because almost like in something's wrong with your car, but you haven't taken it to the mechanic yet.
Mm.
And you're like, oh, this anxiety because you don't know what's wrong. You don't know how this thing, this event, this amputation is affecting you. But then you take it to the mechanic and all of a sudden you have a little list of what's up and you're like, oh, okay, like now I can chill. It's just my oil. And so it just makes it easier to really understand what we're working with. And through that, naturally, the nervous system will start to relax because we also create a lot of that ability to activate the parasympathetic nervous system when we are doing the becoming nothing practice that we do, because we're quieting all of the voices from the trauma that are coming in and just creating more freedom in the body to just be. And from that, there's an opening. And so now that they have this capacity to understand how these meditations work, they can start accessing them right away. I mean, there's so many tools that I have in my toolbox that allow for the parasympathetic nervous system to be activated, for there to be more understanding of of sacred sex, of sacred self-exploration and self-pleasure, of being with self, of, you know, mirror work, stuff like that. Like, it will already start to ground the man into his reality while he's creating these shifts and his nervous system is starting to change. He is slowly already putting himself in a position that's entering into a new timeline. So yeah, without having to go super deep into like every single thing that's done. But for the most part, I think being able to rise above it, to see it, what it is, to label it and be like, okay, I hear a voice and now I can recognize that. I can be that observer. I notice that that voice isn't me, the one that's comparing, the one that's bringing me down, the one that's rejecting. It's like, who's the rejector and who's being rejected?
Hmm.
So when you can sit back and actually observe these conversations that are exhausting and then be like, whoa, that's the trauma. That is not me. Then you can start to be like, okay, now I'm way outside of it. Now I'm not going to listen to it. Now I'm not going to chase it. Now I'm not going to defeat it, to fix it, to fight it. I'm just going to let it dissolve.
Yeah, and I can attest that these tools that you have are quite effective. And I know for me personally, the conscious awareness was there. The recognition from that perspective was very much there. However, these subconscious layers are very helpful to have a little bit of extra, just push into those spaces. Really, some helpful guidance to get me there. So I really appreciate that. And
That makes me
it's
happy.
yeah, of course. And it's a great segue into my next question, which is, you've talked about your origin story of how you got involved with this work. And just for those who haven't heard it, um, Jenna had a very visceral nightmare vision in 2023 where she was forced to witness this horrific act take place in grisly detail. She could not look away. But I really want to focus on that story from the perspective of witnessing. So we just talked about how witnessing is from the perspective of not trying to fix it immediately. So why is that the necessary first step of alchemy, the act of witnessing?
Wow. Let me process that. If I were to relate that to my story, as the witnesser, there is just this space where you can step outside of all of your um, conditionings of that personal self that we were speaking about. It gives you an opportunity to fully step out of that and to actually just see something for what it is, outside of any emotional attachment, outside of what you want it to be, and to feel the visceral expression of something this barbaric, and to literally be faced with an infant who turns and locks his eyes with yours and tells you telepathically to do something and to be there. It was almost like a force, a portal that just took me right into his soul.
Mm.
And when we have the opportunity to fully witness and be the observer, we can do that outside of any, like I said, previous notion of what we think, or what we have available. It's like you're able to kind of go off menu
Mm.
a lot more and to set yourself up from a vantage point that will allow you to come back into that space with a whole new vision and a whole new perception of what's real and what isn't. And I think that's what this whole thing really is about. It's what is artificial. What in me is an artificial expression of something that is not connected to the reality of who I am as consciousness. So much of trauma in general, and being able to step outside of it and look in through the window of it, like trauma isn't real. Trauma is artificial, because anything that is real cannot be changed, it cannot be altered, and it cannot be removed. So if trauma is real, then you can't heal it. Because what are people doing right now? They're healing. And so they're dissolving trauma. So being able to have that big space of coming out and seeing things again, like it almost like, one, there's no permanency to it either, but that's the problem. It's like people are injecting so much permanency into their trauma. My trauma is real and you must believe me, and we're fighting to believe what's wrong and what's negative and what's happened to me. And yes, that's the voice of the victim, but we're injecting permanency into trauma and looping so much in it that permanency injection is actually putting properties of reality into it that is trying to make it real when it's not. So that detachment is such an epic experience to behold, and to even allow yourself to come up to that scale of understanding is it really is a beautiful experience. And to get there it's a privilege, and it takes a lot of work to dissolve those parts that want to hold on to trauma being real, to I am the body, I am what people say about me, all these voices that are actually artificial. So when we are this observer, and when I'm still looking at that boy who called me in to his space to witness everything that I ever thought couldn't exist in that space, because that was a psychic realm, and this is a psychic experience. And the war on life is psychic. Everything is psychic. How I approach my clients, how I approach certain rooms that I go in, how I approach conversations or things that I need to do, or whatever it is, I always meet there psychically. I always consider, is this a cosmic crime? Am I actually going into a space and getting in the way, ahimsa, not in a violent way? Well, nonviolence is ahimsa, but perpetrating violence on trying to force people to see or experience and have a journey that I think is better for them. But like, I don't have that authority over anybody. So the observer allows you to just be with one, to be with life, to experience life itself with no expectation and with no need. Having all this conjunction from all these needs. I need to be respected. I need to be seen. I need to be loved. I need to be valuable. It's not whole, because there's nothing that you can add to wholeness. There's nothing you can subtract from wholeness to make it more whole. When we're whole, we don't need any of these things. I don't need you to respect me because, okay, you don't respect me. It's not going to have any effect on me because I'm whole. I don't need that. And I think that reactivity is such an issue. So again, being able to pause and be that observer, ultimately, I think you kind of nailed it. I think it might be like one of the key expressions and key parts of alchemical work.
I would argue it is absolutely
Yeah.
the key, because just tying it back to the earlier part of the conversation, that is what allows the Immaculate Conception. The immaculate canvas is what allows that conception to flow through, and it cannot be immaculate, it cannot be clean if it's tarnished with our ideas, our identifications, whatever stories we've adopted, the knee-jerk reactions, the traumatic responses. All of those things mess up that canvas so that she can't really paint on it. She can't give us a clear action of how to move and how to respond if we're automatically jumping to the reaction. So that's so
It's
powerful.
brilliant. Brilliant. I love that so much. Putting that together is connected even dots on my end. I'm like, wow. I love it when you do that. Sometimes you throw in the most like casual but like spot on things. And I'm like, dude, that was perfect.
Well, I'd love to, speaking of those uh, things that I've thrown at you, I'd love to go into a conversation that we've had privately around the demonic and angelic possessions that we can undergo in this psychic plane that is really the reality of what's happening, and the surface level physical reality is just what we see. So, if you could explain in your words with your work what you see as far as these angelic frequencies and these demonic frequencies that are constantly around us and how they infiltrate and how we choose which one we navigate with.
Okay, let's start with the demonic because that's coming up for me a little bit more because it's a little bit more complex and convoluted, but it's really fascinating, like really fascinating. And I actually had an experience about this um, the other day with this really sweet man, very curious, but he had a lot of neuro pathways, and I'll get into this in a minute, that were tied to the cultural, to the religious, and to the medical egregores that are controlling humanity.
Mm.
And it can get, and I'm kind of starting this conversation backwards, but we'll kind of like get in there. And he started to glitch out
Mm.
during the conversation because what I was saying was so truth inducing that he actually had a malfunction. Had he had stuck around anymore, because he ended up getting up from the dinner table and leaving. And I was like, oh no, did I have a need? Was I trying to be sure that he understand where I was coming from? I was just fully expressing the understanding of wholeness, like we were just discussing from your previous question about respect, how men need respect, right?
Mhm.
He could not, he couldn't. So his body literally went into a malfunction and he got in his car and he left.
Mm.
So if we were to think of the collective cloud, it has a deep impact on all of us energetically. Even though there's certain types of narratives and things I may not be tied into, or certain things are happening in the news I'm not paying attention to, if the collective is in disarray and it's really chaotic on a certain aspect of the field, I'm going to have some form of symptomatic expression or experience, whether it's minute or whether it's more grand. It doesn't matter. So these egregores exist almost like a cloud, like another collective field. And they are religion. They are specifically when we're talking about the realm of circumcision, because there's plenty others, but when we're talking about the medical cult, when we're talking about the religious cult, when we're talking about the cultural cult, those are actual egregore entities that live in the field. And so they actually are feeding down into us that have been developed from the personal self, right? Like all the, like you go to the doctor if you're sick, or you better not sin, or you better circumcise because that's because Jesus was, and that's what God said to do in the Bible, or the foreskin is ugly, the foreskin is gross, we do this for cleanliness, we do this for cancer. Everyone regurgitates the same phrases. Everyone has their own kind of feeling on what they can say and what they can do to defend it. So each of these egregores actually has a neural network placed inside of humans, specifically in the United States. And it is controlling their behavior. It's become a software, and they have to abide by these mechanics, this software. And if someone or something outside of the software system is disrupting the algorithm, these people will actually have a glitch. They'll malfunction. So it's just like, if you can really understand computers, you can really understand the psychic realm and how it operates. So everyone is operating from those neural networks that are just planted in there, telling them how to act, how to respond, what to do, when to do it, how to drive a car, how to get to the doctor, how to take a PCR test, how to have a medical birth or do a circumcision. It's all being fed from these egregores that have literally been forced down our throat from propaganda and misinformation. And so those are some really big ones that harvest our energy, keep us limited, keep us tied to our body, keep us away from experiencing the wholeness of self and life and consciousness. And so that's why people are reacting and have such crazy responses to LGBTQ plus or whatever it is, or any of the movement, any of it. So those are the types of demonic systems that are actually wired into our brain. And it's really fascinating and interesting, because when you can truly understand this, you could do what you said, like the observer, you can actually have more compassion for people. Like, how do we handle a malfunction of someone else without having our own trigger, our own somatic stress, PTSD response to that, right? So the idea for the creation of more of these angelic, for more of these beautiful ties, to opening more of these airways, these channels, whatever we want to call them, to have the divine perception be able to come in. We have to dissolve these densities. We have to dissolve the egregores, dissolve the voices, the things that are keeping us tied into the system. Well, if I can't heal and I need a doctor to heal, boom. Or I can't create anything because society told me that it's like 1 in a million or 1 in a billion and I'll never get there. Boom. You're locked in. And so when we can really be the observer, look at the voices, look at the trauma, the entities that have been cultivated in our life that are meant to keep us congested and dense, we can actually create and entice new neural networks, new neural pathways to start to spark and grow, that are more aligned into the celestial and angelic realm of wholeness, of not having these needs, of not listening and outsourcing to white coats, of realizing that the Bible sure is a guide, but hey, there's something in this that just doesn't make me feel right. Or if someone out there is going to judge me and that's going to have an effect on what I choose to wear or how I choose to show up, then I'm not going to be radiant in my authority and autonomy and my authenticity. And so when there's this dissolving of these traumas, of these identities that have been created for us, then we can open these neural pathways to feeling grand. I am a healer. I can let this circumcision trauma go. I can restore myself into the divine masculine. I can call in a new timeline, call in a new woman, experience deep, beautiful, expressive, radical love and sex with a woman. I can have that car. I can have all that money, because ultimately freedom, freeing myself, liberating self out of this graveyard is how we do that. And when we're in the body, we have to do that by reprogramming it into the brain. So it becomes a whole new personality that we get to experience every day, all the time. And that inspires, because the more light that comes through from those sparks of those networks, the more light that it's going to start to trickle into the field, into the metropolis of this grave, and truly get to the core and to the heart of it, so that we can have a deep impact on healing those that are unconscious and those that have absolutely no awareness to this. But all of a sudden, they're going to wake up and there's going to be this glimmer, this opening of God in them, because we're expressing so much light. It's inevitable in this conversation. And you and I have even had deep, beautiful conversations over, we can trim the tree and we can try to get all these people to understand. and talk it out, blah, blah. But we want to find beautiful psychic ways to infiltrate into the core of the root system, to really create a shift into this golden age that we all know is there. We all know it's waiting. It's already happened, but we're just here in the middle of the stewardship of it. And I don't know if stewardship's a word, but it felt appropriate.
Oh, that was awesome. And it's what you're speaking on is one I love to engage with when engaging with people of various perspectives and all different walks. So you speak of this sort of enticing or uh yeah, way that you what I how I read that is you shift your perspective or what how you approach somebody based on where they are and what they can receive. So I'd love if you could speak a bit more about that, of how we approach, this knowledge of perhaps this is the first time we're coming into awareness of circumcision being this horrific practice, or we're feeling that sort of anger and resentment, or any of these sort of driving emotions that can lead us into action. And it doesn't even have to be about circumcision, but just that impetus to want to shout from the rooftops or want to go tell everybody this and that. How can we navigate that to meet people where they truly are so that we have the best potential of impacting them where they are, to meet that light within them, no matter how faint it is?
Yeah. Yeah. I have people ask me this question a lot, specifically like with circumcision and, how do you respond to someone who their egregores are like locked in and they think that this is what they're supposed to do and they're regurgitating all the things, right? The best way is, well, let's look at history first. This anger, the reaction, that need to fight, that need for your point to be understood, valued, and seen. It's like this force that comes through that when it's channeled, when it's coming out and being ejaculated from the body, that is going to hit someone else's system. It's not going to work. Look at history, look at the way that so many people are responding and fighting on Instagram and all these things. It doesn't work. And I even had to get myself out of that sleep because it's very rough when you see circumcision truly for what it is, and you've seen all the videos and I've heard all the testimonies from hundreds of men, and then you see people that are like tied. So like it gets really difficult to like, I don't understand how such a horrible human can actually exist. But when that jolt, when that ejaculation of that energy comes out, it's being translated more through a darker lens. It's more shame, it's more guilt, it's more harm. So it doesn't work because in order to fight the dark, you can't fight darkness with darkness. It's a natural law. It's a universal law. Like it can't. You have to turn the light on. That's why a lot of light workers keep being sent into this realm, because a lot of them are getting stuck, and then they're choosing on how they're saying they're getting too close to the dark thing as it is. So if you're light and you're getting too close to the dark and you're interacting it with it too much, right? It's almost like a mosquito that hits one of those those nighttime mosquito things, whatever they're called. And so when we are the light works through us and with us. And then again, it's that karma, it's that psychic understanding of ahimsa. So I usually will speak my truth in a way from a very confident and very refined source of light by asking questions. Sometimes that's basically how you get someone to think outside of the box, is asking dynamic questions, depending on what the conversation is, depending on, well, one, I have to read and register, is this person even someone who has an opening? If they don't, why? They're going to feed off my energy. Now I'm interacting with something. It's a vampire. And if my light isn't on, if I'm not full and it's being taken by something else psychically, I'm not going to have vital life force to move through me. So that's an automatic, I don't want to use the word boundary, but just an understanding of our relationships with one another energetically and physically. So if there is someone that is open and they're willing to answer some questions and go a little bit deeper, this is usually how I'll spark more pieces of light within them. But it just always stems from understanding the benefit. Like, I understand there's, oh, the harm, oh, the harm, oh, the harm. Okay, what about the benefits? Because the benefits of having a foreskin, the benefits of divine masculine men walking around this earth, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Being able to allow that experience that you can have and pull that in you and be like, okay, this is the benefit of it. I'm going to embody that for a minute. And then I'm going to use that energy as I embody it to ask all the right questions. And as soon as they are like not having it, you have to drop it, because then that's where their karma is. That's the karmic relationship between that boy and that mother and the father. I can't hijack or interfere with that as a cosmic crime. There's something there that needs to happen in order for him or all of them to come out of the grave and come out of the rot. So, there's so many bad things that happen. I think circumcision is one of the worst things, the worst torture that exists, really. Like a fresh infant, no anesthetic, the foreskin removal of 80,000 Meisner's corpuscles. Like, a lot of texts will say 20, but I've this woman named Georgianne Chapman, who's part of Intact America, she recently quoted, I think it was her, or she has her counterpart. I forgot her name right now. And she says that doctors from the AAP, the American Association of Pediatrics, yeah, the AAP, that they've actually admitted to her that there's at least up to 80 or 100,000 nerve endings when everything that you'll find out. So like, science is always growing. We're always all these things, but how complex the organ it is on its own is a whole nother conversation, is something nobody is even talking about. But beyond that, um, this is something that they're here to learn. And these wounds have the gems. These wounds are going to catapult you into a whole new experience that you didn't even be able in this human body to conceptualize. But up until you do it, that's when the unfoldment of God starts to reveal itself in so many surprising ways that you tap into the miraculous and the supernatural, like I was speaking about earlier.
That's great. So on that topic of the transmutation of the darkness, right? We have to fully acknowledge it. We have to fully be with it. And then internally, as a sovereign, transmute that, alchemize it, bring that lead into gold. So there's often a misconception around, because you spoke about not dwelling in the darkness, right? So there's a misconception around bypassing the darkness, staying away from it, in denial of it. So how can we distinguish that with this practice specifically, or just in general? What would be your thoughts as far as like moving away from, oh, I'm just going to ignore this because it feels dark and heavy, versus getting caught, locked into the dark space and being locked into that? Both of those I see as quite harmful, but I'm curious if you have any more thoughts there.
Yeah, so you're basically asking me the difference between all of a sudden getting sucked in and like what happens, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like you're not ever going to get to where you wanted to be.
Yeah, well, more so like if you're getting sucked into that dark space and you're feeling the anger, the resentment, and you're moving from that space, versus, so that's one angle of what I see as a pitfall. But then the other angle of that pitfall is the bypass, to say, oh, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to look at that. I'm not even going to acknowledge it. How can we walk that line right in between, that balance point of not falling into the darkness, not dwelling in it, not being consumed by it, but also not skipping over that part as well?
Yeah, understanding the energetic discernment and boundary of the situation. You'll know when you're with, let's say you're about to get sucked into something you'll know that by the way your body feels, by how hyperactive you get, how your heart will pound and palpitate a lot more. And it comes from this almost, it's a dissociative type of space. Like it really takes you out of your grounding. So you can feel that pressure really start to bubble. And that has been one of the hardest spiritual practices that I've actually faced in everything that I've done, is knowing right at that precipice, right where it starts to like a pressure cooker, and just to stop. Because at that point, again, I can start to pick up on my own voices, my own entity trauma of why it's trying to prove. And so that's just a place where it's just going to take you into a somatic crash. And there's so much disappointment. And then you're chasing opposed to like actually being. And then when it comes to the bypassing, and I guess I always, whenever someone says that, I always just think of like an ostrich, like his head in the sand, right? Like he's not fully there, and it's more of this avoidance of confrontation or people pleasing. So I would also realize, okay, because in the face of this, you're going to figure out your own trauma. You're going to figure out your own things, which is why it's like, it's so fascinating to think of it in that capacity. But that's just another outlet to really connecting to that people pleaser. And like, we have these elements, like we behave a certain way because we're avoiding something. We're avoiding something because we fear losing something or someone. That fear underneath it has a feeling. So you can actually extract people's behavior by how they're feeling on deeply on the inside, by what they're avoiding and what they have a fear of losing, and then that feeling. So a people pleaser is really just avoiding confrontation because they fear losing either control in the moment or someone that is part of that conversation, that they could take offense, and they're going to fear they're going to lose that friend. They're going to lose that relationship, that opportunity, because like underneath it, they have this feeling of not being good enough. So there is an opportunity. Let's say you choose not to say anything to somebody. You can still not bypass the situation by recognizing I'm people pleasing. So what at the very end of this am I feeling? What am I avoiding? What am I, what do I fear I'm going to lose here in this moment, whether it's a person or it's a thing? And what is that undertone? What's that true feeling? Because that feeling is the trauma that is basically hiding, and you're doing all these things to camouflage it and perfect it, prevent it from being felt. That's what all these things are. We're chasing because we don't want to feel like we're unworthy. We have to be confident because we don't feel like we're good enough or worthy. But in addition to that exercise, how they both can expose parts of ourselves that, definitely need dissolving, there is also a way of when we are whole and we have no fear of loss, no avoidance, no certain behavior, we express ourselves from so much authenticity, because authenticity is truly wholeness. Because I'm going to be and express myself in my whole capacity. So being able to respond rightfully in a way that is in your autonomy, is more sovereign. And like, I don't have an agenda. I'm not people pleasing. I'm not here to prove or convince you of anything. I don't have any fear. I'm whole. But I see an opportunity, a window that I'm going to assess whether or not, based upon your energy, if I'm going to say something or not. Are you an open portal or are you closed? So you can have these two opportunities of healing. And then in the middle of it, that's where you sit as your Christ self, and knowing how to discern and be the observer. Okay, they're open. Great. I'm going to say something. I'm going to ask questions. I don't need to prove anything, and I don't fear that I'm going to lose you. I don't fear that I don't feel that I'm not enough. I am enough. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. And it's great to flesh that out, because when we try and define the route for every situation or scenario, then often we can get lost into one way or the other. The swinging effect can happen. So I love to always bring it back to this balance. It truly is a balance, and yes, it can show up on this end of the spectrum or this end of the spectrum, and how you distinguish that is your sovereign ability to be that conscious observer, to have those immaculate conceptions by leaving that canvas blank so that you can be the one who knows in that moment to speak and move with authority.
And yeah, and that response,
Yeah.
like having the valve is so open, like the response can just be available. It flows out of us effortlessly. There is no
Yes.
holding back. There is no um constant vomiting of something. It's
Right.
just it's like wisdom is female. Wisdom is very precious. And in the place of people that actually are willing to receive, wisdom comes. If there is an area of prostitution of wisdom, of trying to prove yourself, she's not going to come. She's not going to be available. So having that ability to be this open channel for wisdom, when to come, when to not. And again, it's all about like your audience. Is it kind of just schmoes who are locked into the egregores of, and I didn't mean to be disrespectful when I say that because some of them can be really difficult, but I say that with, it's not even you schmoes. I feel like I got myself in a deeper hole here. But these people that are really tied into, maybe the doctors can be schmoes. Anyway, I need to stop. The people that have all these neural networks, these egregore voices.
Yeah. NPCs is sometimes they're often termed those who are locked into the automatic control scheme, the least sovereign beings, which, God bless them. We're all aspects of this creation. We need all aspects of this creation. But yes, there's yeah. So I hear you. I get you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
So I want to talk about the role of the feminine in this. And I know you started your work in women's intimacy before shifting to this. So for the women listening who want to support their partners without mothering them or pitying them, what is the most powerful role the feminine can play in the restoration of the masculine?
I have the goosebumps. It's such a beautiful conversation to think about the reciprocity, or rather the dichotomy of the two, and how that they can synchronize into so much harmony that because like we don't really get to experience that expression because it's so altered, right? There's egregores that are actually creating the toxic and like all the things. So for a woman to really show up, she obviously has to go through her own healing. She has to really understand where in herself is she disembodied. What are the cultural voices? What are the narratives that have been fed to her that are preventing her from feeling erotic, feeling sexual, loving her womb, loving her yoni, exploring her body without any shame or disgust? Because if she cannot be and love every square inch of herself, specifically in the sexual realm where there's so much dander and there's so much infection, then there's really no way that she can hold the space and to allow him to come forward with whatever it is that he has and have a ability to be grounded in her response, to ask questions. Nurturing isn't like coddle, coddle, are you okay? And the checking on. Guys get so annoyed with that. I get annoyed with that. Nobody likes that. But it's this, she is so in her own wholeness that she can be curious, she can ask questions. Because remember, like, it's always about asking the right types of questions to help people feel empowered by coming up with their own medicine. And if she has too much of her needs needing to be understood, it's going to hijack the experience. So women can play such a beautiful role in stewarding new opportunity to spark a new facet of what could happen, of reality, of spirituality, of a new way of looking at things, a new way intuition can come in, and all of a sudden that can become an idea, and she can call to action, and the masculine can take the action around that. But she comes from this place of inspiration. She comes from this place of deep embodiment of sexuality, and not having all these needs to need him to look a certain way, to be a certain way, or to heal a certain way on her terms. So when she can experience the divine femininity for who she is without any description, like I'll work with women, and because I do a lot of mirror work, and we've done some reconciliation, but the process for the woman actually is a lot longer, because she has to go through the descriptive. So for example, the divine the divine feminine, when she looks in the mirror, she says, I see my eyes, I see my nose, and I see my lips. The personal self of the female expression: I see my big eyes, I see my wide nose, and I see my thin lips. There's a description.
Mm.
So the idea for her is to dissolve a lot of the descriptions so that she can fully see herself in the mirror as is. And from that lens, she too can see him as beautifully and as is. And so from that expression, she can allow for the soothing. She can allow for her feminine to also offer a little bit of that mothering. And I know that it's kind of controversial to say, and I know we've spoken about this, don't play the mother, don't play the father, but we actually have an inner child within us. We have a little girl and we have a little boy. We do, and we will until the day that we die. And there are opportunities where this part, this nurturing mother archetype, will actually be called from the masculine, who sometimes needs some of that. Oh my God, mom! Like, and I'm not saying it like that, but you know what an angle I'm coming in here from. Like, I just need that soothing. I just need a little bit of that nurturing, just to get a little bit of that taste of it so it can be expressed, and then that energy can pass, and then he can step back into his masculinity. It's almost like all of a sudden I'm just seeing like track runners, or like long cross country runners, and like people are on the side and they're handing them drinks and they're handing them things. Okay, they'll take a chug and then they throw it and then they're back in the race, kind of like that. And so we can utilize those aspects of ourselves to support the space and the place that our partner is showing up as, without shame, and without, again, understanding the sovereign aspect of the wholeness of knowing, like, when it's too much, where's the balance? Like, when it's not enough. But as so long as she is embodied, so long as she has healed, and she is living her own life where she's healing, evolving, and serving on her own terms, she can meet him and really hold him in a nurturing space of asking the right questions, of really just listening, and without having any agenda.
Mm. That's amazing. Thank you. So for the men listening, and especially fathers or those who will be fathers, beyond just not cutting, what is the energetic responsibility of a father who has been cut but chooses to leave his son whole? How does he protect his son from his own unhealed projection?
Wow. Initially, I had a glimpse of a friend of mine that I interviewed last year, and he's cut. He and his wife chose not to cut their boys. And he said when they made the decision, because at first it was an autopilot, it was, yeah, we're going to cut our first. Yeah. And then she was like, well, hold on. But he said he had that automatic regurgitation. And then they looked at the videos, they saw the things, and they made an informed decision not to do it.
My God.
He said he went through a morning where he could literally feel the trauma archetype within him disappointed for not being able to continue on the lineage of the cut man into him. And he was like, it was really fascinating to come face to face with that. And he had to actually go through this mourning period of not being able to pass it through, which is, it's so pathological because that's how things actually like pass through lineage and through the DNA. But it's just really profound on really understanding and grasping the belly of this beast, choosing not to and being cut and seeing an intact penis for the first time is also going to be its own experience of like, I've never seen this before. I've never been around this before. There's going to be a lot of curiosity for sure. And it could easily be bringing up something in him, which is a beautiful, children are reflections, and there are beautiful opportunities for us to heal these parts of ourselves by each age that they are. So it becomes this ultimate invitation, in addition to realizing that he wanted to keep the trauma lineage going. And then he sees this, and then now he's working with something he's never worked with that he never had the opportunity to. So it could be triggering him on some level. But to really understand where the trauma can be passed down to his son, really can sit where he is going to push his son to achieve all the things that he can't find within himself, all the ways that he tried to compensate. Is he pushing that narrative and creating a neural network in his son? So having these needs for all these accolades and him being the star of the football team, or and not allowing the full expression of their son as a soul who came here, who basically is trusting the parents to help him become this human he's here to be and to serve and all the things. So that's usually where they would need to stop and feel those needs of pushing those types of things. And where is he going to subtly reject his son? He's probably going to want to reject his son in the ways that he rejects himself internally.
Mhm.
So it's just, if you know, now that I think about it and that you ask this question, it would be a whole nother layer to a healing opportunity that is extremely available, having him have the right tools to understand how his circumcision trauma is working in his brain and how it's creating his reality and how it's making him want to move and do things in a certain way, or run, hijack, and sabotage, abort mission.
Wow. Yeah, that does bring up a lot. And especially as I know we'll be shifting out of this satanic practice, a very important conversation to keep on the forefront. So thanks for engaging on that. So I talked about in the introduction about the Ninetagram in your academy work. And so just for anyone listening, of course, without giving the whole structure away, but is there something you want to share as far as like what that is for somebody who's curious, who hears that word? And then from that, because I know it details the 9 psychic and psychological ingredients that you've formulated. So from that, what would you say is the biggest psychic ingredient that most men today are completely missing?
Great question. And thank you for clarifying too. So the Ninetagram is just a basic, thorough understanding of what working with me is like. And through when I work with groups, it is more along this Ninetagram session based, chapter modality based system. So when there are groups, it's easier to move them through a paved path together than it is when I'm working one-on-one. Like for us, it's basically like we're kind of targeting everything that I would be doing mostly in the Ninetagram. But we're coming at it from a system that is more what's the word I'm thinking? Not more custom,
Curated.
curated. That's the word for you. But the whole process in general, it's starting from the psychic realm, weaving into the neuro pathway, the psychological part, and then we'll get more to how to pull that energy into the full embodiment of unconditional love. It really depends what group is coming in or what individual is coming in. They all have such depth and importance to them, and how they just synchronize and open each session, that it's really, really hard to see. But I might go as far as saying, and let me check in with my body to be sure that this is right, but I think within itself, being able to, like I said earlier, to just create these practical understandings. Like, sure, this is such a deep wound, and not that many people are talking about it. And then we think that there needs to be all this data, all this system, all these things, all this medicine, all these scans and blood work that needs to do. But actually, it's a lot simpler than that. This whole reality and everything is a lot more simple than we think. Our minds likes to convolute and to make everything all complex. It's fun. I love the stories. I love the things that can be kind of grasped, because I'm such an intellectual, and I love being able to do that. But it's not practical. And so the overall theme of practicability, digestion, like our spiritual wellness, well-being, digestive systems are just, it's so much. And so that's why people are going into a new training, they're going into new things, they're reading that book. I used to have like 5 books on my nightstand. I couldn't even finish one. I can't tell you the last time I finished a full book. Like, let's be real. But but just being able to be like, look, simple. This is what it is. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to dissolve it. This is how amazing you are. This isn't real. And like that within itself is so empowering, because we don't have to be this crazy, like Harvard, whatever. Like, anyone can do this. And that, to me, why? Why make it more difficult? So the overall theme of it is really in that space that this is you, this is the issue, and we're going to come and we're going to get it, and then you're going to be way over here and everything that you never thought that you could be. And I'm going to guide you there. And it's such a privilege and such an honor. And I have so much fun. And how you and I laugh, and how like we'll stay off camera little times after we're recording or whatever. And I just get off on cloud nine. I'm so fed. I have so much energy. It's just it's a fertile, fun space.
Well, you certainly have a gift with it, and we appreciate it so much. And I love how it does demystify the issue, which is, as you said, that's the weight that we all carry. That's the egregore that keeps us locked into a fearful state of overwhelm of, I don't even know how to begin this thing. So I might as well
Exactly.
just forget it, or numb myself out, or ignore it, because
Paralysis.
yeah,
No action.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that was well said. So yeah, I would love to give you an opportunity to share where people can find your work. You know, where I know you're very engaging in social media, and I love seeing your posts. But yeah, if you could share with everybody where you are and where they could find your work, that'd be great.
Thank you. Yes, you can. My website is www.alchemizewithjenna.com. It's a quick landing page. You fill out 2 questions, your first name, last name, email, and you can submit a private call request with me. I follow up within 48 hours, and I just ask you some questions, and then we'll take it from there. So it's a really easy process. You can find me on social media, on Instagram, or I have a YouTube channel where I'll actually be interviewing Justin, I think, next week. And lots of people in the intactivist realm are there. More people are finding out about me. My name is starting to kind of blossom in this space because, like I said, everyone is kind of fighting dark with dark. And so the celestials have definitely been on my side of getting me into the right place at the right time, which is so unbelievably miraculous. So it's easy to get a hold of me. Pretty easy.
Yeah, and I can attest to that too. So, well, thanks for that. I'll definitely share all your links in the description so people can find you easily.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we've covered a lot today. We've covered the trauma, the mechanics, the healing, but I want to end on the truth. We acknowledge that the Christ within, the I am presence, is uncut. So if a man walks away from this conversation right now and does one thing to start living from that uncut reality today, before he even does the deep somatic work, what is the one mindset shift he needs to make?
Oh, to get there. So I was like taking that in so much as a prayer. It was like, oh my gosh. What is it? What is the one thing that he can take away from this to get him to that space? I guess like to send me an email. Is that what you're saying?
Sure, just before even embarking on the deeper work, what would be the prompt you'd give to all men out there who are digesting this information as a tangible action step to take right now?
If anything that I said resonated and there were certain characteristics and attributes of what you experience in your day-to-day life, and you know what's preventing you from going and getting from point A to point B and experiencing yourself as an effective healer, I mean, leader and a healer within yourself, right? Then it's all about your readiness. Like, we don't know when the last time is that we take our last breath. I could get off this call and something could happen to me. Tomorrow could be your very last day. So it's like you make that choice, and your readiness is a barometer for self-love. We can wait until life happens to us and kind of move the needle really slow as things kind of move, or you can make a decision and say, I am ready now because I love myself. And I'm recognizing there's certain things here that I don't want to live with anymore because I want to be in a beautiful partnership with a beautiful, healed, divine feminine. And I want to rise and serve the world in beautiful ways and dive and tap into my assignment as why I'm here. So the people that come after me do not have to suffer as I do. That to me is knowing that like we are the ancestors that did the right healing and chose ourselves so that we can prevent our children from experiencing this trauma, from experiencing this life. Give me the fucking torch and let's go.
Boom. Love it. Well, awesome. Jenna, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your courage, for your selfless gift to mankind. You embody such a divine care and compassion, balanced so beautifully by a steadfast strength and tenacity. So thank you for the work that you've done with me personally. The ripple effect you're sending out is powerful and tangible. So on behalf of all men, I can safely say that we see you, we thank you, and we honor you.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody.